This is Rhode Island Bureau Chief Wendy London.
The Managing Director of Paragon Trust Company and tax and private client practitioner joins us to bring a common sense approach to money in a world of total insanity. Let's welcome Tony D'Angelo.
All right, I'm going to call you, I was going to call you one of the greatest, like a private eye, but...
You can call me many things, Lee Elci, but do not call me late for dinner.
Not call you late for dinner. The great Tony D joins us every Tuesday morning, and Tony is just diligent and just does so much work behind the scenes. You guys could never really know how much effort and time he puts into all this, and I really appreciate that. I do know the listeners appreciate it because I know they really reach out to you.
Well, proud to be among everybody.
All right, ethics. Let's start with that.
Yeah, and good morning, spin doctors. This is to the kids. We're going to talk about this. There's been a lot of interest in this subject that we've talked about with the governor and self-dealing and things like that. And one of the things that, I've heard bandied about is, well, there is an ethics plan. Okay, let's look at the sequencing here. And here, the kids have to follow the bouncing ball because I know that I do. The ethics plan was written May 16th, 2019. You could look it up online. There's recitals. There's a number of the Lamont entities, the organizations that are involved. But there's a very magnanimous gesture here, and I say magnanimous in quotation marks. The governor agrees to have no official action for the following entities: OAKS Management Company, Oak Investment Partners, and the old Oak HFC and the related portfolio companies of them. However, okay, so this all looks really good. There's a paragraph at the end of it. Actually, this would be on page 16. The ethics group says that before closing, we recommend that if there are any substantive changes to the steps the governor and Mrs. Lamont have concerning their financial assets and associated businesses, the petitioner, who's the governor's general counsel, should contact the Office of State Ethics for further advice. In other words, we're believing you guys are going to act in good faith, and the governor's counsel again is has to rely on what the governor is telling him. However, we talked about this before. A few months later, August 1st of 2019, there is what is broadcast from the Oak HCFT people, a new fund. Now, draw two underlines under the word fund. It's called the Oak HC Partners 3 LP. Now, they use the word fund, but really, in the document itself, which you, Lee, had in your article, it is not a fund. It is a new firm. It is a partnership that is based in the Cayman Islands. So two things have happened right here and just in what we've said. This first entity, which was funded with $800 million, is effectively, a brand new thing that is way off the charts. This ethics agreement does not apply to it. And the other thing is, it's the Cayman Islands, kids. I'm going to say that again, Cayman Islands. Why does somebody go to the Cayman Islands? Well, there's two reasons to go to the Cayman Islands. Number one, it is a total and complete tax haven. I don't deal in the stratosphere. I know of it. But the other thing is total and complete secrecy. So right away, they have gone ahead and done something away from what they've done. To the official world, it looks like, this same thing that was covered under the ethics agreement is a new fund. No, it ain't. It's a new firm, and there ain't nothing sticking this Cayman Islands thing, nor the subsequent OHC4 to the ethics agreement. So people that are looking at this thing, they're kind of myopic and saying, well, this is all one thing. No, it's got tentacles. Your ball, my friend.
All right, I have one question on that, and and maybe it's not as important as just the meat of what you're talking about, but you had mentioned it's a haven for hiding things. How do people hide money in the Cayman Islands? In other words, how do they get it back? They still have to eventually come.
Well, I'm so thankful you mentioned that because there's so many moving parts to this thing. This is a particular configuration. The one to Lamont, it is a Cayman Island, shall we say, foreign partner and a Delaware corporation, domestic partner. So Delaware is known in the United States of America. People incorporate in Delaware because of its very strong corporate confidentiality and secrecy. So this is not something. This is shall we say, an act of intent to do this. They meant to do this. It's not like Angelo and Elci saying, "Hey, let's get our wives and go out for go to McDonald's or something."
Right.
This takes time, which kind of leads us to the next part of the discussion. Two things here could have happened. Now watch the timing: May and August. Either the Lamonts, and again, they're saying, you're the governor of the state, you are the, whatever you want to call it, we know you're acting in our best interest, that two things could have happened. We expect for you to be truthful. They either knew about what they were going to do when they were sitting before the state and constructing this agreement, or they didn't. Now, neither outcome is good. Now, let's march this back just a little bit. I had a bright idea. I called my trust banks. They don't deal in the stratosphere, but they know of people who deal in private equity. And the question was, as posed by one Tony D'Angelo of Pomfret, Connecticut, how long does it take to set up one of these mousetraps? And it came back to be, Tony, minimally 6 to 8 months, because you've got domestic counsel, you've got Cayman Islands counsel, you've got to raise $800 million from credit-worthy people. I mean, this isn't something you're going to decide to do in an afternoon. So, I mean, can you really point to the fact that, this is what they did? Was Rome built in a day? Highly doubtful. Let's just say I'm entirely wrong, and this thing doesn't, the duck doesn't quack that way. If they were able to somehow do this thing so very quickly, and to say, oh, this is something that we wanted to do, and where this ethics agreement says that, or ethics plan, if I'm going to be precise, says you must come and, we're expecting you to act in good faith, and you don't say a word. Neither of these things look good. I mean, and basically, and the other thing is, on the part of the state of Connecticut, we use language here in receipts and rules. And basically, when you do things, I mean, anybody working in the trade knows this. You're going to kill something, you want to kill it dead. So basically, you have, if this agreement had any successor entity that any of the Lamonts ever got involved with anything at all, a couple of lines of verbiage, there would be no issues, and they would be forced to act ethically. I mean, one thing that's very specific to that is when you go down the language of this thing, when they mention that they're, quote unquote, getting off the ball, they use, I won't go as far as to call it a term of art, but it's very, very targeted. We directly and specifically, proactively recuse ourselves from anything involving OAKS, HCFT, OIP, or any of their respective portfolio companies. Why are you directly and specifically doing this, guys? You're limiting your hands-off thing to just a few things.
Right.
Sounds like there's a little bit of brain work going on, and when you have really a fine New York firm who's helping these people do this, I mean, basically it's Lamont's hired guns versus state bureaucrats. No contest. Stop the fight.
So I'm the governor. I'm Ned Lamont, and I want to run my administration with the most complete transparency, more than any other governor in history. I want to be completely ethical. I want full disclosure, everything. So my wife has her hands in these different corporations, blah, blah, blah. Tony, as the governor, what should I have done?
10,000 things go flashing to my brain, but the first thing you should have done was, Governor Elci, was that we have these things, we believe there is a grave situation. We're putting these things out there. We should have been running another page on Open Checkbook saying, these are the interests, these are what's here, and these are the profits that either I'm acting for the good of the state. I mean, there's what's happening here is the complete opposite.
Right.
Where some of the other networks are looking at this, and some of the other commentators, and they're very fixated on that, this ethics agreement and that OAKS, goes far beyond it. I actually heard a political figure this week who accepted an explanation, as I understood it, who had brought this to the Ethics Commission, and they said, well, we don't cover the Cayman Islands. I mean, like, that's the equivalent of, there's a baseball fight, it's a bench-clearing brawl, and, somebody rushes off a bench, with a folding chair and clobbers the pitcher, and Major League Baseball says, oh, no, we don't cover folding chairs, we only cover the equipment used in a ball game. I mean, people, it's like...
That's funny.
Don't you see what's happening
Yeah,
here?
that's funny. So, all right, so there were or are things he could have done
Oh, certainly.
to at least allow a little of an exhale.
You
I
are
mean,
the chief fiduciary officer of the state, bar none.
right. Would have been better for him just to ask his wife or those organizations not to participate in it. That would have been simpler, wouldn't it have been?
Oh, much more so. Much more so.
Right.
I mean, the problem is when you believe you've got the perfect mousetrap and you own it to catch all the other mice, you're in a direct conflict. It's a question of, well, do I sell this mousetrap for the benefit of all, or do I let somebody else sell the mousetrap? And if you decide you've got the mousetrap, you can't benefit in any way, shape, or form from selling that mousetrap. You just can't.
I mean, are they making, they being the Lamonts, are they making, in your estimation, your expert estimation, are they making a lot of money on this?
Well, just look at what happened with SEMA 4, and look at the money, as you pointed out of the state checkbook and what that propped up. We still don't know. We don't know the viability of this organization, and we don't know if other than undisclosed prices for what's the game here? What are they doing? I mean, I'm not enamored with the fact of, this is a good group. I don't know if they're good or not. There's not enough there to prove it. I mean, well, just count what you got there. $35 million coming off one way, $343 million coming back on game day with the offering.
All right, listen, we're out of time, but let's tell everybody you're going to come on with me for a segment on Wayne Allen Root Show. What are we going to talk about Thursday?
Oh, we're going to talk about a real fun subject, which is I've been doing this now for 40 years, and I've got a law professor telling me that taxes are racist.
All right, fair enough.
Never considered that.
I'm looking forward to that. And so that'll be Thursday night, 6:35. Tony's going to be out with me, Wayne Allen Root Show. So you want to send one song before we go? You want to send one